Have called on countries to sign a declaration that will ensure that children are prioritized in the climate action policies.
The United Nations bodies are emphasizing that the climate crisis is actually a children's rights crisis. The younger and the future generations are the most vulnerable and will experience the devastating impacts of climate change the most. Noma Bolani reports from Madrid in Spain.
2020, we rise up! By 2020.
Young people are calling on world leaders to include them in climate action deliberations. Youth from all corners of the world are using the Fridays for Future movement to pressurize their respective governments to commit to carbon reduction and adaptation mechanisms. Sharing their fears about the extreme weather patterns and pollution damaging their home countries and continents, these activists have described the lack of action by developed countries as environmental racism.
Which type of storm or what flavor of floods must Africa test for us to get climate justice?
It seems that some lives matter more than others. The rich and powerful seem happy to sacrifice our communities in the pursuit of profit.
Environmental experts are concerned that country plans on mitigation and the nationally determined contributions don't mention or include children or young people. UNICEF believes that youth participation is vital in fighting climate change.
Consequences of the climate crisis are all around us, affecting children the most and threatening their health, education, protection and very survival.
The Office of the Human Rights Commissioner wants government leaders to recognize children's rights to a protected and sustainable planet.
Children and young people, including young people under the age of 18, have a right to participate in decision making. The Convention of the Rights of the Child demands this. The Paris Agreement reaffirms it.
On Tuesday, ministers of environment will deliver their country statements on the progress they're making on climate action. Will they answer the call and consider the Youth Action Declaration? Noma Bolani, SABC News, Madrid, Spain.
The rights of children have taken the spotlight at COP25, currently happening in Spain. Our reporter Noma Bolani is at the gathering.
Human rights here at the COP25 have been a central focus of the negotiations, especially coming from bodies like the United Nations. We saw today that the declaration was launched by UNICEF as well as the Office of the Human Rights Commissioner, basically speaking about children being put at the center of these climate negotiations. We're joined here by the UNICEF Director for Eastern and Southern Africa, James Elder, who's going to speak to us exactly about the declaration and what it means for the rights of children. So, James, if you could maybe start us off by telling us what exactly does declaration mean?
The declaration, in the most simple sense, takes this idea that the climate crisis, climate change, is about child rights. So when we talk about things that, for example, 90% of the increase in disease is going to hit under fives, or when in our part of the world, Southern and Eastern Africa, we see kids go from drought to floods, that's a question of sanitation, of water, of rights. When we see schools get washed down in Mozambique, that's a lack of access to education, that's rights. So the whole climate crisis is about child rights, or more so, child rights being denied to kids. So this declaration that we're very quickly trying to get as many countries to sign up to makes them promise those basic things, that they will give voice, they will give money and they will give space to kids to be a big part of the crisis that's hitting them so hard.
Speaking about the signing of the declaration, are there any countries who've managed to sign the declaration so far?
Yeah, the good news is there are. We've got Chile, Costa Rica, Spain, Nigeria an hour or two ago, Peru, Sweden, so a whole range of countries very, very quickly. We had a panel just now with a group of incredible young people, really passionate, bright young people, including a 16-year-old from Zimbabwe, hosted by Mary Robinson, the former Irish president, and they spoke to it, and like it was, like country sign. So it's starting to happen. Now, we all know that declarations are great, but they need to be acted out. We need to see that happen, and that's why, the strikes we've seen around the world have not been translating into power in these corridors of power. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to turn this declaration into action in the places like this where all the real power is.
And tomorrow we see the country statement starting to be delivered. Are you expecting some of the ministers to say that they've heard the call by the young people and they're going to be signing this declaration?
Yeah, absolutely, Noma. I really am. I mean, we've got young people even now. My own country, Australia, young people are going to that government right now. Young people are sitting with their governments this evening. UNICEF is doing that. More importantly, these ministers of the countries I've mentioned, Nigeria and Sweden, I know, are off seeing their ministerial counterparts saying, come on, let's get serious with this. So it's starting, we know that. But as I say, the really critical thing is that they take the declaration, sign it, and do something with it.
Do you think that these negotiations, is there a lot of focus from the countries on children? They're the future generations. They're the ones who are going to feel the impact more than us who are older.
No, I honestly don't think there's enough. I mean, from what I've seen and from what I've heard, and here I'm paraphrasing young people who, are much more engaged in this setup and who have been living and breathing it here at COP, and they all say to me that no, they don't feel that they know they are the first generation who will inherit a planet and a lifestyle lesser than their parents. That one thing we all strive for, give your kids a better leg up than you had. They know that they're the one generation that won't get that, but they're not hearing it. They're not hearing the protests that they make in the streets from Joburg to Sydney to Seattle to London. They're not hearing it. Now, they're not giving up, and they know how to join forces and they know how to make themselves heard, but they know that unfortunately they've got a lot of work still to do.
So, James, just let us know, what are some of the biggest impacts you're seeing, especially in southern Africa? We've seen a lot of drought, we've seen a lot of floods happening. How is this affecting children?
Yeah, it's a great question, Noma. And the thing is, what's happening, I'm seeing with the droughts and floods, they're just happening so close to each other. So families aren't getting that time to recuperate. There are cyclical droughts, but then there is ones that occur so close, like in Zimbabwe now, we're seeing the worst drought in 100 years. So it means families don't know where the next meal's coming from. It means they have less access to clean water. You start this cycle, less access to clean water, more chance of kids getting disease. So we see hunger increase, we see disease increase. It's standard stuff. But again, from a UNICEF point of view, these are families. They're the front line. We're there to help. Governments are there to help. Families are the ones that do the most always. But there are these moments, like now, when you go from Cyclone Idea to a drought, that the international community need to step up. And that's stepping up with funds, and it's stepping up with mitigation. It's stepping up with the G20 reducing their carbon emissions.
Thank you for joining us, James. That was James Elder from UNICEF Eastern and Southern Africa speaking to us about the rights of children here at COP25 in Madrid.
Dozens of African National Congress members, at the invitation of the Basotho National Party,